Hey, how's it going everyone? In this web development tutorial, I'm going to create the Twitter edit button using HTML, CSS, and of course JavaScript in order to create new tweets and also be able to edit them. Or at least what I would simply imagine how a Twitter button should look like and how it should behave. Now, the main focus of this tutorial is to create the Twitter edit button and also make it functional using JavaScript. Now, this means that I'm not going to focus that much on the CSS part of the project. So I would encourage you to pause the video here, go ahead, download the CSS from the description in the link below, and then come back to the video. As always, my name is Norbert and I teach web development on this channel. And with this being said, let me remove my face and let's get started with the project. And let's also show you how the project works. So within this project, we're going to create the sidebar using HTML and CSS. They're not going to do anything. We're just going to have a dummy sidebar. Up here, we can create new tweets. Now the tweet edit button, as you can see, is deactivated, is disabled. We cannot click it. So let's, for example, type something in here. This is, and you can see that the tweet button is now activated. So this is key sensitive. Now, if I press on tweet, then this is going to create a new tweet. And I just realized this is not the entire tweet that I want to create. So let's edit the new tweet by using the edit button. Now, if we hover over the button is going to turn red, signifying that the button is active. Now, if we click it, the button is going to turn into a check mark. This means we can now edit the tweet. Within the tweet, we can now go ahead and type something in here. This is my second tweet, and we can then close it up. And now the tweet is no longer editable. Okay, so that's basically it. If you're excited for this project, then please give it a thumbs up. So now let's actually get started with the project. And by getting started, we're going to create the project folder. So let me just go ahead. Right here on the desktop, I'm going to create a new folder, call it Twitter edit button. So Twitter edit button. Button. Oh no. The typos again. Twitter edit button. I'm going to open up Visual Studio Code and just drag and drop the folder within here. And we're good to go. Now let me resize the entire thing. And we can get started by creating our HTML file first of all. So let's create a new file within our folder, call it index.html. Create a boilerplate, hold down Shift and exclamation mark. Give it a title, Twitter edit button. And now let's create our CSS file. Let's go back into our folder, style.css, link it up within our HTML file, so link, and let's link up the CSS file. And as I said, just copy in within the CSS file, the CSS that you just downloaded. Okay, I could actually close up the CSS file, and now let's go back into our HTML file. If I just may go over the introduction part of the CSS, I just created here a general reset using star. I'm resetting padding and margin and have created some variables for colors just. Okay, I'm going to close this one up. Go into our body, and let's first of all create the sidebar, which is just Twitter edit bar. Let me also open this up, right click, live server, and I misspelled Twitter, just realized that. Okay, next up we can create a sidebar navigation using HTML and of course our CSS, which is already integrated. Now, although this will only have a aesthetic functionality, as you can see here, it doesn't do anything. The process will be extremely simple and we will use Font Awesome for this. So in order to create the icons, I'm going to use Font Awesome. Now, in order to use Font Awesome, you will need to include the CDN, which I did provide it down in the description below. So by just copying in the link right up here, I'm going to go to CDN, I'm going to go to Font Awesome CDN, and from here, I'm going to copy the very first link. Now I'm going to include it before our link tag, so our CSS, our style.css, and we should have Font Awesome up and running. Now let's also open up Font Awesome, which will send you to the site. Again, the entire links are down in the description below. And from here we can start, go to search and search for any icon. Let's say user, take the user icon, click on it, click on the tag. This will copy to the clipboard. And if we integrate it right here, just blank like that, it should already show. And this means Font Awesome has been successfully linked up. So Font Awesome is successfully linked up. Now let's start and create the navigation bar. The navigation bar is pretty straightforward. Just going to create a nav tag and give this a class of navigation. Navigation, not you, boom. Within our navigation tag, we're going to include the icon. So let's move this one up here. And because we have already our CSS within here, nav tweets, so far and so on, navigation is already starting to take effect. Let's include the next icon, which would be I dot and the class of fa-brands dot for the second class, because from here we're now going to choose the fa-twitter icon. If I hit enter, then the Twitter icon should appear here and it should already have the blue color. Alright, the next one will be dot fa-solid dot fa then dash house. This will give us our home button, and I think you're starting to get the grip, so I'm just going to copy and paste in the rest of them. So let me remove this and paste in all of them. Also, the entire code is down in the description below, so if you just want to follow along, then you can just download the code and watch the video as you wish. Okay, we have our menu up and going, so we can now move on and create the Twitter main container. Now, the main Twitter container will contain the existing tweets and also the possibility to create new tweets and display them within there. So let's go ahead right after our navigation menu. Let's create a main tag with a class of container. And within here, I'm just going to create h4 and I'm going to give this the name of home. Okay, this should already appear up here. Of course, the entire styling is already taking place because you have everything in your CSS. If you do want me to create a separate video with styling everything, then please leave it in the comment section below. As I said, I will only concentrate mainly on the JavaScript part and creating and editing tweets within this video. Next up, let's go ahead and create the container where we can create actual new tweets. So I'm going to go after our home, after our h4, and create a header tag. I'm going to give this the class of new-tweet. Within here, I'm going to create a div, the class of user image, img. This is going to contain the image. Now, I'm going to include my own image, my picture, my beautiful picture. And this is going to be included in a new folder called images. And this should be within here. So let's create here a img folder. And within here, I'm just going to drag and drop the image, which is this one. Take a look at this handsome fellow. Okay, now the image should automatically then appear, but if it doesn't, then this is what you have to do. Let's open up our CSS file again, and let's go to where the image is stored. And this should be stored in the class of user img. Now, all you need to do is create the link between the image and actually you just need to create its path. So the image is within this folder. You're just going to go ./img because that is the folder that I saved the image, and then select the image. Now if you hit save, you should see the image appear, and there we go, there's our image. Again, this should be your own image, of course. Okay, let's move along and let's create the input, so where we can actually create our tweet and this Twitter button. For this, we're going to go underneath our div with the class of user image, and let's go ahead, create a form with the ID of add tweet. Now we're going to grab onto this ID later on using JavaScript. For the action, I'm not going to actually need any kind of action, but let's go ahead, go into our form tag. Within here, let's create the input tag. This is going to have the class tweet-text-content. Now the type of the input tag should be text. Don't use numbers or anything else. And let's also give it a placeholder, which we're going to, let's just grab onto the property of placeholder, and let's type in within a placeholder, what's happening. We're learning JavaScript, that's what's happening. Okay, now right after this, we need our Twitter button. So by remaining within the form, I'm going to create a button. Now this time, I'm going to give it a type of submit. Now the type of submit will make this form submittable. So we're going to click the button, which you can see right here. Then it's going to submit the form. Now let's also give this a class, Twitter, or let's just call it tweet btn. Hit save, and there's a button. Also, let's type something in here. Let's type in tweet, because this is what the button will actually do. And now, in order to make it, like you see here, transparent, we're going to give it the property of disabled. Now, by giving it this property, this is setting disabled to true. And we're going to manipulate this using JavaScript later on. Okay, so this part is done. Now, let's go ahead and make this button key sensitive. Now, what I mean by that is whenever I start typing, then this button should be functional. So how can we achieve this? First things first, let's create a JavaScript file. Go into our project. Let's call this tweet.js. Let's also link up this JavaScript file right before closing body tag, so script, and the source will be the tweet.js file. And to close our CSS file, we don't actually need it. And let's move in here. And first things first, let's do a console log first, or whatever you wish. Now go ahead, go on your project, click on inspect, and then should move this down below, and then go to the console. So elements, console, and you should see first log down here, or whatever you typed in as a string. Okay, so our JavaScript file is up and running. I'm going to delete this part and let's start grabbing onto things. So first things first, I'm going to create a const variable and call it tweet text and content. Now let's go to the document and grab onto the tweet text content, because you can remember the input tag has this class of tweet text content. So I'm just going to copy that class. Go ahead, go in here, document, query selector, and I'm going to select it by dot and adding the class. Next thing that we need is the tweet button. So let's go ahead, const, create another variable, tweet button, go to the document again, select the tweet button using query selector, and let's select the class of tweet btn. And I'm missing a T here. Now we want to make this button active as soon as we type within the input tag. We got our input tag up here. So what we need to do is listen to this input tag. So I'm going to select it, tweet text content. I'm going to listen or add a event listener of key up. So whenever I release a key, then this is going to be active. Now I'm going to take the short route. So I'm going to use add event listener and then add the event. But I'm going to use the on key up event here, which is just a shorter term. Now we need to assign it to an arrow function. And within the arrow function, we're going to create a condition. So if the tweet text content dot value, because we need the value from the input tag, I'm going to search if this is empty, if this is an empty string, so there's nothing in there, then the Twitter button will be disabled. So I'm going to use the disable property on it again, disabled, and I'm going to set this to true, to the boolean of true. But else, so if there is a key press, then the tweet button dot disabled will be false. Okay, and this should already work. So it is, as we stand, empty, and as soon as I start typing in here something, then you can actually check this by selecting the element. Let me refresh the page, select the button. You can see if you select the button, then it is disabled. Now take a look at this part. If I start typing something in here, you see it disappears. This means that we're setting disable to false, so its property will disappear. Okay, but as soon as I refresh here, it's going to appear again. So we can now tweet. We can make this happen using our button. So what I'm going to do now is actually create a tweet here. But what we need, first of all, is where the tweets will live. So we do have our container and we do have our tweet where we can create new tweets. But right after this header, I'm going to create an unordered list, give it a class of tweets, and within here we're going to have our tweets. So as soon as we create a tweet, it should land here. Now I'm going to insert here our very first tweet, which is going to live in a li, so list item. It will have the class of tweet, and I'm going to start creating how a tweet should look. So let's go ahead and create our very first tweet. If you take a look on our finished project, you can see we have some basic details about the tweet. The tweeter, the one who's tweeting, this is this part. So let's go ahead and create this. Within our li, I'm going to create a div. I'm going to start and move really quick here. So div with a class of user details. This is going to include a div with the class of user img again. Let's hit save. There we go. Already our very first tweet. As I said, after this, we're going to have a tweeter details. So let's go ahead, create another class of tweet and details dash details, and within here I'm going to have another div, the class of user, and this is going to contain 3 span tags. So I'm going to use span and times 3. Okay, we have our 3 span tags. Now each one of these span tags is going to have a different class. So the first one is going to have the class user name, and it's going to have the content of Norbert BM. The second one is going to have the class of user-handle, user-handle, and the content with and b menu height. The last one will have the class tweet age, so how long has it gone and since the tweet has been created, and let's just create here dot 4 hours. Now where the actual tweet will live, I think I have here one span tag too much. Wait just a second. This shouldn't be here. This should actually be here. Sorry about that. And the dot shouldn't be here. It should be down here. Dot 4 hours. And I'm going to resize this a bit. Okay, now where the tweet will actually live is going to be in the input tag. So right after our div with the class of user, I'm going to create the input tag again. This is going to have the class of tweet dash text dash content. Now this part is very important. I'm going to give it the value my first tweet. And this is actually what the tweet is. Now the next property that I'm going to give this input tag makes it uneditable. Basically what this means is that I could go in here and start edit this tweet, but we don't want this. What we do want is this part, this tweet, to be read only. Okay, and now I can no longer edit this part. Now from here on it's going to be pretty simple, so I'm just going to start and copy in a couple of things. I need a edit button, which is going to be the fa solid fa open -2 -square. This is going to be our Twitter edit button. And from here on is just a couple of icons down here. So I'm just going to copy and paste the container with the icons. So right after this div, after our user details, we're going to insert this part, which is the interaction. So you can comment on it, share it, like it, and so far so I'll vote it upwards or not. Okay, we're pretty much done with the existing tweet. Now let me also close out the console. We need to take care of the editing part. Now we need to take care of making this actually functional so we can create a new tweet. So let's go ahead, go into JavaScript. You know what, I'm going to close up this part. We don't need the navigation anymore. Let's now create a new tweet. First things first, I'm going to create a variable with let because I want to be able to change this. Now what I'm actually going to create is a new div. So let's go ahead, new tweet content, and I'm going to create a completely new div with this. So document create element, and we're going to create a div. Now how should we be able to create this div? Well, by using our form up here. When we click on the tweet button, it should actually submit this form. You can see it's submitting and create a tweet down here. Our first problem is that this form is automatically submitting, and if you're following my channel that you already know how to stop this, we need to grab onto the form which has the ID of add tweet. So let's go up here. This will be our form. So let's create another const. Let's call this add tweet. And we're going to, you could also use get element by ID if you wish to. So let's actually use it. So dot get element by ID, and let's add the ID of add tweet. Okay, now to this ID, so to this form, I'm going to use now the add tweet form, and I'm going to now add an event listener of on submit. Again, we're going to assign it to error function, but this time it's also going to listen for the event itself. So I'm going to pass in the event as a variable, and we're going to take that event and prevent its default behavior. And this is a function. Okay, so now if I would try and click on the tweet button, nothing will happen. The page will no longer refresh because the form is not submitting. So now let's grab onto this new tweet content. Let's pass it into our form here. The new tweet's content dot inner HTML will be now a new tweet. Now we can just grab onto the tweet. So the entire class that we have up here from the user div downwards, actually from the li downwards, grab onto it, copy it. So grab onto the entire thing, go into our JavaScript, open and close backticks, because we're going to use template literals within here, and paste it completely in. So the new div that we are going to create will be actually a li with a class of tweets, or it will contain this li with a class of tweet, and everything that is in here. But we are not done yet. We want that the new tweet to be added to the new tweet content, to the tweets itself. So we need to grab onto the tweets container. So all of our tweets are within this UL. Let's go into our JavaScript file and let's say const tweets, and this is from the document query selector. We're going to select that class of tweets dot tweets. Now we should now have access to this UL. Now to this UL, to this tweets UL, we're going to, by remaining within this functionality, so let's grab onto the tweets and we're going to append a child. Now this child is actually this new tweet content that we just created. Okay, I'm going to pass it, I'm going to pass it within this parenthesis. And now if I type in something, add, and click on tweet, this is going to add a new tweet. The problem with the new tweet is it has exactly the same content that we had up here. Why is this? Well, because we programmed it within our input tag, we programmed it to have exactly the same content. How can we change this? Well, by replacing this value, so the value within here, by using interpolation. Now within here, I'm going to use the tweet text content. So this right here, dot value. So whatever I type in here, add tweet, now press on tweet, is going to be added down here. Now I see that my add tweet didn't disappear. So what I typed in here didn't reset. So now I'm going to, before adding this tweet, I'm going to grab onto the tweet text content dot value, and I'm going to set it to a empty string, and this is going to get rid of whatever I type in here. So add tweet, and it's going to disappear. Now the problem is that our button still remains active. So we can also take care of this by grabbing onto the Twitter button dot disabled, and now we're going to set it to true again. And this should also take care of the button. So add tweet, the content, the value disappears, and the Twitter button is set to disable again. All right. Next up, let's take care of editing the tweet using the Twitter edit button to edit our tweet, because right now we cannot do anything in here. So let's type in here comment, make tweet editable. Now we need to grab on to all of the tweets. We can simply do this by going up here, and we can do this by, first of all, listening to an event. Now my event, how I solve this is grab onto the tweets. So grab onto this entire thing right here where we have a new tweet, and add a event listener. Add a event listener on mouse enter. Now I'm going to assign this again to an arrow function, and whenever the mouse enters the tweets, it should do something, and that something will be, let's first of all console log the string of tweets. So let me show you how this works. Let's go ahead, go to our project, click on inspect, go to the console, and if I enter with my mouse any tweet, then they should appear. Okay, if I enter it again, tweets. So now it knows that I am with my mouse within our tweet. Next up, let's grab onto the button. So when I'm in here, I'm going to grab onto the button. I'm not going to create a separate variable for it because this is the only place I'm going to use it. So you could also do this. Document query selector, and we need to select all of the buttons. So the button has a class of fa.pen, and this should be in a string. Sorry about that. Let me also show you. This is the button. This. Let me open this up. Sorry about that. So the Twitter button, the Twitter edit button is actually this. I could have gave this a ID, so far and so on, but I want to do something special with it. I want to grab onto this class, go in here, so dot, grab onto all of the class, because we are going to have multiple buttons. So add tweet, and you can see we have now 2 buttons. Okay, so I want to be able to grab onto all of these existing buttons. Now by grabbing onto all of the buttons, we now need to listen to all of them. So for each, edit btn, or let's just call it edit, and let me pass this into as an argument. We're going to use here now a callback function. So for each edit arrow function, I'm going to take that edit, so edit dot on click because I want to be able, when I click on that button, on click, it should do something. Now, first things first, I'm going to listen to the event. And let's just console log. Let's just do something. Let's just console log the event. Console log. Okay, so if I now hover in, you can see the tweets are appearing. And if I click on this button, then I should see something. Oh, sorry about that. We actually don't need this FA solid. We only need the class of this exact button. So if I click on the button, then I should see the event, which is the click event. Okay, so I just clicked on it and it's showing me the event. This means this is working. Now we don't want to show the event, we actually want to do something else. We want to be able to edit this input tag. For this, we need to grab onto this input tag. So when I click on this button, it actually should grab onto this input tag. Now let me create here a variable using let. I'm going to call this text. And I'm going to set it to the event.target because we are targeting something. And this something is this button or this icon. So the targeted icon. And now from this icon, I'm going to use a little bit of down navigation. This icon's previous element sibling is actually the input tag. So previous element and sibling. You know what? Let me actually show you this. So console log text. If I click on this button, it should select this input tag. And there we go. If I click on it again, it's going to select it again. Now we could do something with this. We could make its text.read-only property be set to false. Okay, so if I try to edit this, doesn't work. If I click on it, now I can edit it. But that's not all that we want to do. We also want to finish editing, and for that we need another icon. So let's go ahead and create some conditions. So if something, then do something else, do something else. Now within the if, we're going to say that if the e.target.classList.contains, so we're going to search if this targeted element, if its class list contains the class of FA, we don't need the dot, FA_pan2_square. Now if it does contain this class, that means that this is active, the edit button is active. So we're going to go ahead and e.target.classList, and we're going to replace that class with another class. And this class will be FA_pan2_square, because we first need to tell what is going to be replaced. So which class we're going to replace this class right here. Then outside the quotation mark, comma, and what we're going to replace it with, we're going to replace it with the FA circle. And remember, these are font awesome classes. So FA circle and dash check. Okay. So if this exists and we click on it, it should be replaced with another class. And if I click on it, now the class is going to be replaced. Now I can't click on it anymore. So now the class has changed, but also I want to make then the text editable. So I'm going to move it up here. Again, if I click on it, I can now edit this, but that's not all that we want. We also want the text within here to change color. So I'm going to grab onto the text and assign this the property of style.color. And now I can use the variable from my CSS file. So from here, these variables right here, and I will use the light gray color. So I'm going to copy this, actually with the hyphens, copy it, go within here and assign this to the, using a string, var, and pass in here the color. So take a look at the color of the tweet. If I click on the edit button, you can see it's going to turn light gray, indicating that it's now editable. Great. Now the else statement is we're going to check for the class again. So if the e.target class contains the FA square, is going to do this, but if it doesn't, then it's going to do something else. Now I'm going to copy everything that is in here, and I'm going to change it by replacing this part. So if it doesn't contain, then I'm going to replace the FA circle class with the FA pan class. Okay, and I'm going to set the read only property to true again, and I'm going to change back the color to its initial color, initial. I'm missing an E-I. Okay, so if I click now on the edit button, then the text is going to be gray because it's now editable. I can edit it, and if I click on the check button, then it's going to reverse this to its normal color, and it's going to reverse the icon here. Okay, so basically this is how Twitter should create the Twitter edit button, or maybe not, I don't know. Okay, hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. If you're not subscribed and you wish to subscribe to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and also click that notification bell in order to get notified wherever I post new content like this. Also check out my other videos and have a lovely day. My name is Norbert, and catch you on the flip side. Bye bye.